Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports. Ross, I got to ask you a question before we get into your article. Do you ever sleep? Like literally, you crank out massive stories and a lot of them. What is your schedule? Are you a night owl or what? How do you do all this?
I usually try my best to get about 6 hours a night, but sometimes that doesn't happen of sleep. Last night I got 6.5 hours. So I'm nice and rested.
Oh, you are.
Just ready for your show.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. We appreciate that. Craig Smoke, Paul Catalina, David Smoke with Ross Dellenger. So obviously there's been a huge reaction to the story you had late Sunday about the expansion and automatic qualifiers. In your opinion, what did you see based on what you published and what the reaction has been from your end?
Yeah, well, there's obviously been a pretty big reaction, even though really this is not too new of information. You know, we've known this format has been out there since last spring. You know, the Big Ten introduced this multiple AQ format during negotiations with the CFP last spring. It was shot down, or basically it was tabled. And so now it's come back up, and not only has it come back up, but the SEC is perhaps along for the ride as well in support of the proposal. But we'll see. There's a big meeting here in New Orleans tomorrow to discuss just that. But the reaction from those outside the SEC and Big Ten has been pretty clear. They are not in support of this.
Ross, how do they push back on this? Because this is something that, like, if they expand to 14 or 16, they're going to get the teams they want 95% of the time. They're trying to ward off a mosquito with a bazooka here.
Well, yeah, and you know, I crunched some data in that story, as you probably saw, to see where, you know, as far as conference participation, the number of teams in the top 14 or in the top 16 over the last 11 years in the CFP, and it basically comes out to the format, right? The SEC and Big Ten get about 4.5 teams each in the top. The average about 4.5 teams each in the top 14 of the rankings. In the Big 12 and ACC are about 2 each. In the Group of 5 is about 1 every 3 years, and Notre Dame is about 1 every year. So really, in this 4-4-2-2-1 deal, if it does go through, you know, the G5 probably should feel the best out of anybody, because they rarely get a team in the top 14 every year. It's more like, again, every 3 years. So you're right. You got a point. They don't really need this. So why have it? Why propose it? I think it's about a lot more than what's needed. You know, all these things are related. If you have guaranteed access, you can play a tougher regular season schedule. You can play these potential play-in games on championship weekend. The SEC might move to 9 conference games if you do this AQ structure. So there's a lot tied into all of this.
Ross, what kind of a risk do you think a Brett Yormark or a Jim Phillips run if they try to fight back against this and the automatic qualifiers? Is there a chance that then Sankey and company go back to the table, the Big Ten, and say, all right, well, then you get 1 team in? Or, you know, I mean, is there a big risk or a gamble, in your opinion, in fighting back against this? Although you feel like you probably just don't want to sit there and take everything that they're dishing you, right?
Well, I'll go back to last spring, which was CFP negotiations over revenue and format. And the format discussion, again, like I said, was tabled, but the revenue discussion did go through, and everybody signed a memorandum of understanding that was tied to the 6-year extension of the ESPN television deal that runs now through 2031. And that's part of that memorandum of understanding. The 8 other leagues in the FBS agreed to cede decision-making power on format to the SEC and Big Ten, and they agreed to give the SEC and Big Ten a majority of the revenue. And you probably ask, why would they do those things, right? Because the SEC and Big Ten threatened to leave and start their own playoff.
Right.
And so that's kind of what happened last spring, and that's why we're in the situation that we're in here.
Do you think, honestly, that the SEC and Big Ten combined feel like they can have a national championship without Clemson, Florida State, teams like that?
What's up? We outside. Having fun doing what I want, cause you know the sun beating down kinda like a drum.
I think they probably feel that way. Yes, I'll give you guys this one. Many of the SEC ADs feel that they should have an SEC only playoff and an SEC only champion that is deemed by them the national champion. It's been something discussed in the room the last 2 or 3 years. That's how they think. Now, for the betterment and the whole of college football, we all know that's probably not great, right? That's probably not good. You want, and Greg Sankey, to his credit, has said this multiple times, you want a coast to coast, national championship. And, with this format, we probably are getting a little bit away from that.
So, you know him. I've never talked to the man. He says things like this, but he does other things. What are we supposed to believe that Greg Sankey really wants outside of SEC dominance?
Well, you got to remember all these commissioners, including Brett Yormark, work for a board of presidents, right? In athletic directors as well, a secondary board of athletic directors. And so what they want is what the commissioners are supposed to be fighting for. So it tells me if Greg Sankey is fighting as he is for these things that we're discussing, it's that the presidents and the ADs of the SEC want that. And I think, that's kind of where it stands. A commissioner is only as good and only is supposed to fight for what his members and his membership want.
The money is obviously on the table. How much difference would there be? Is the money set, Ross, if it's 14 or 16? If the SEC goes to 9 games, there's got to be more money they're going to want from ESPN. How does all of that play into this?
There's no new money for 14. If they expand to 14 in the college football playoff, there is no new money. It's in the memorandum of understanding that the playoff will be 12 or 14 teams, and this will be how, this will be the payout for that, et cetera. If they go to 16, ESPN will probably have to be more involved. I'm guessing that the commissioners and the leagues would want more money, having 4 extra games, right? In a 14-team playoff, you have 2 extra games. Then the 12 and the 16, you'd have 4 extra games when comparing to the 12. So you'd probably get, or you'd at least negotiate with ESPN for more money in a 16-team version. But in 14, there is no new money. However, there's new money in the as you mentioned, the SEC going to 9 games. I think there would be some new money there. Certainly, the league is requesting new money from ESPN and has been now for a couple of years. There's new money in any kind of play-in style tournament that you reimagine championship game, conference championship game weekend. Maybe you still have a conference championship game in the SEC and Big Ten, but you play your 3 seed against your 6 seed, your 4 against your 5, and all that stuff. So I think there's a possibility for new money there, and there's probably new money in an SEC Big 12 or an SEC Big 10 scheduling agreement.
Ross, this is a part I've wondered about, and I don't know if they've gotten this far down the line. Who would be the conference champion if they played like a 4-team play-in or what? I guess if they did it that way, I guess whoever wins, right? But if there was a scenario where like the top 1 or 2 just automatically go in, and then let's say 3, 4, 5, 6, I've seen that kind of a thing proposed. Like, how would that work in your mind? Is it all just the conference championship doesn't really matter anymore, and it's just about playoff access?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you go with this model, the format would make less valuable conference championship games, I think. So do you still have them? If you're the ACC and the Big 12 and you only have 2 automatic berths, do you have a championship game, or do you have your 1 seed play your 4 for a play-in game, when your 3 play your 4, or your 2 play your 3 for another play-in game? Maybe. I don't know. I think those things are a long way from kind of being final. Those are big decisions that are tied to network, television contracts as well.
Yeah, because that part's been kind of confusing, but it makes sense that they don't really have that decided. But just seeing a lot of scatter shooting on that, it was kind of confusing. But I guess we'll find out in due time. So, guys.
Yeah. So if the SEC finally goes to 9 games, does that mean that that'll be the standard? I mean, that they will have caught up, and then maybe the ACC has to do that as well?
Well, that's a great question, because everybody else will have played, everybody in the power leagues will play 9 games or 3 of the 4 if the SEC goes to 9 games, right? So that would be a great question. And I think probably there would be strong encouragement that happens, that the ACC also go to 9 games.
Ross Dellenger with us, Yahoo Sports. I was at the Baylor men's basketball game against Arizona. Yormark was there, but I didn't have a chance. I was hoping to be able to get him off to the side. It didn't work out because of the timing. He seems to be a fighter. Like, he seems to be a guy that again, from the streets of where he was raised or whatever. Do you feel like Phillips, whatever, that he's going to fight this tooth and nail, or just talk?
Oh, well, I think he is a fighter. He is aggressive, right? We've seen that. I would be surprised if he doesn't fight against this. I would. But again, I go back to last spring when the memorandum was signed. This is kind of already done. The authority has been granted to the Big Ten and SEC. Now, we'll say this, and Brett Yormark and folks in his league have made sure, I think, to point this out to me, and it was in my story, is the memorandum of understanding says that the SEC and Big Ten has to make a concerted kind of effort. I think the right words are a meaningful consultation on format with the other leagues. So what exactly does that mean? And I think Brett Yormark wants the SEC and Big Ten to make sure they make very meaningful conversation about this with the other conferences.
Anything else, guys? Paul?
I'm good.
Ross, good luck with the meetings tomorrow. I'll be looking forward to your coverage from those, and we do appreciate your time. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Thanks, y'all.
Ross Dellenger, Yahoo Sports.